we are upkeeping ourselves through the upkeep of the journey, the saga, the collective saga of our human journey, if you will. What we mean to one another and what kind of went on as a result of that, so we know collectively how it kind of plays out, pans out, is how we all view. It's when we all see what we all saw, how we then view reality. In history and how it went down or went up. Our upkeep of that is what keeps us going as kind of the reality rolls over itself, if you will. And everything that we have here is compressed back into one starting point, our body or our life, whatever it is, and then we go on from there with the same variable potential or a restored potential in a sense, or I guess it's, it's just the efficiency that we have in seeing the potential and using it. Not like you can quantize it, if you will, although it's in a general spectrum. So the other thing then was kind of like to handle the dark, one has to become the light and dark aspects within themselves, and that each part of themselves is balanced in the sense that each side looks at it and neither side knows who to attack or what to do, and you feel neither persecuted or exalted in that sense. And trying to throw that balance then makes you, on one end, a king or queen, and on another end, a jester or trickster or a destroyer. And on another end, a healer, and so on. When in reality, it's all the same character, if you will. And so in that sense, everybody becomes either Luke or a Jedi or Darth Vader or a dark Jedi, I guess, if you will. If that's what they're called, I can't remember. Or those for the Dark Force or whatever. And in that sense, either that or you're kind of like C-3PO or what's the other guy? Is that the android? No, that's the little bot. What was C-3PO? I don't even want to start thinking about that movie. And then friggin' damn trickster. This reality kind of got dried out of its trickster energy, and so it has to jumpstart the anomaly engine to restart time and introduce possibilities, which down there are infinite, innumerable, unquantifiable dimensions, more or less the all. And then here they have to trickle down into meaning here, and so it was like we sealed that off. And anyway, and the more you do that, the more it comes in, and we're getting these points of extreme anomaly and then mundane or like stagnation and nothing. But we manage it because we're perceiving it all within ourselves, depending on our gaze. So in that sense, if you become the robot dude or Steve or whichever, in that sense, you are still wondering about the ending, because whenever the stuff hit the fan, you basically beeped and spun in circles and didn't know what to do. In that sense, we all cycle through these characters in our life until we come roundabout with realizing the importance of all of them, and that it's an illusion to stay stuck seeing the self or the classical or supreme self as any one of them individually. And in that sense, this is basically a metaphor for a lot of the systems that we saw that went on, whereas what went on out there became massively socially or mentally, gravitationally influential to the constructs that are present down here mentally. And so it's like the Battle of the Titans by default, automatically. And then as a result, these same archetypes that were pretty much extensions from what went on down here, and the restrictive kind of reverberance that went on as what went on out here went out there, it made it so it was like harder for anyone to break free from those archetypes, because they're basically like grooved into the memory banks, the emotional field of the mind going through that. And so it was the most intense thing ever. And then humanity goes like one of like a certain number of ways, and it was very difficult to break out of that to get that spectrum to expand. Because then how do you do that? You get one You get 2, you'd have to get all whatever level of expansion there is, and you'd have to expand them all up by the same level of expansion that many times over. Otherwise, you just add 1, it's going to slide back into the same slot in the same 4 or however patterns going over. So it had to be, if there were 3, it had to be 9 extra patterns or 6 extra patterns to get it to double itself or triple itself. Otherwise, it would just be 3 again. And even then, that would be 3. But if we can hold it open, what we've done is gone down in scope and expanded out and recalibrated to see more of the options there. And in that sense, in some ways, it was about having those options in a kind of concentric potential, an array of potentials and variables, like prime number grid, and having too many inconsequential variables or these kind of like side channel feeds that led back to the same possibilities. They didn't actually revolve or change anything. And it was like too much filler information, couldn't see what the true variables are. And so then at a certain point, it's collapsing down those variables back into what is really happening there. We have 3 options. Basically, we have to, get away from it or convert it, and whatever as far as the variables go. And when it came down to that, we had to restrict a limited amount of time because that was kind of like the name of the system there. And so making the wrong choice, you couldn't make the wrong choice. If you did, it led to a complete collapse of whatever you gained before, and you had to start all over. And it was like that, and you can't get back until you make the right choice. And if you fall out of time sequence, if you will, with this reality, that could spiral off into a place where that mind fractal would literally have to be lassoed, if you will, gone out, like a connection would have to be bridged to it across. You could conceive the darkness of space in a way, the absence of a pathway in time. And that experience, it's kind of miraculous, but if you don't know and building up to it, it's like a nightmare where you basically have no possibility. In your mind, there's no way for your survival to work. There's no way for your reality to continue on. And then each time that happens, basically the weirdest shit happens and somehow it continues on, or you pass through it's just weird shit. Like reality is a series of eye holes and stuff. And the same thing happens. Whereas you might forget about that, like a continuous daydream, and you're literally experiencing like momentary lapses of vision, a collection of experiences that you're pretty much acting as a kind of blind narrator, host, or like agent, if you will, like a talk show host, walking through them and trying to understand them. And if you don't have the knowledge of like the other end of the fractal, of the source of why these seeds are out here, why these realities are waking up, starting, and going on to try and figure out how to get back to the source, the original, it's insane in the sense that the understandings you form there will be what shapes the rest of your understanding of reality, until pretty much we all get to that point where you can see what a system is. Basically, how every person that goes out, you end up as a colony of individuals and conceived realities and parallels that were already created and happen to be the ones that were necessary for your formation here in the first place. And it's like going across a bubble spectrum of potentiality and variation that has nothing to do with what we perceive to be linear time and before and after and start and end and cause and effect. It's inverse. It goes cause, effect, and then cause, effect, and then they inverse themselves to the point where you're looking at the same mirror of an effect, and it's coming this way in time, and we think we're going to go out here and then go that way in time, but no, you go out here, it turns out you came from that way in time to get there, and there's this mirror that we're seeing. It's like there really is nowhere out there, but then that's maybe because we haven't processed enough variables to make it whole enough for the membrane to expand, or for the membrane to become a linear system within a larger system of a membrane that could be maybe an advanced higher dimensional system or time system. But the information processing there would have to be like quantum computers across conceived planetary potentials, in the sense that I don't know how we would step up from this view to that. And there is a talk on that about just 9 magnitudes of order between each segmentation of civilization, if you will, in the sense that those who started the expanse out there pretty much are 9 eternities that way, and it's almost as if we have no way of meeting one another, but we can, in a way, look at each other, point, fall asleep, and our generations to come will pass each other and meet, and all we can really do is make the roadmap for them to know why they're doing that in the first place and who sent them in order to know who we are, and then we'll probably get the memories or the idea of doing that in a sense. And then if you look at that membrane system and how it reflects and do that, you kind of think of that while you're going into it, and then that's what you get, and it makes sense, makes a greater deal of sense. Instead of going this way and trying to connect that way and find something that's out there, you go here with the much intention that the two are going to do, and it comes kind of like huge like arrow points coming to a point, and then they have all this meaning between them. The two universes come to a point, a supernova of meaning, instead of going out to the memory and going beyond it and being like, yeah, this is what's going to happen out there. It's not, that's that would be using the projection system instead of going and go beyond it, and you literally just hit this, and you're just like, a ship goes pink, and there's not, anyway, and it's like, that's you, and you're just like, what is this? And it's literally just like, what is this? And it's like, that is disappointing. You go at realize what it is, and 2 civilizations that kind of understand that, do that, and maybe that's how 9 eternities are bridged, and who's actually on the other side of the membrane can be communicated with, in the sense that we are knowing ourselves.